What is up guys, it is Ross, and welcome back to another Mario Kart Wii Limitless Vehicle Showcase. In this episode, we will be going over the Standard Kart M. The Standard Kart M. You know, what do I even say about this vehicle? It is a standard kart, and it is medium. You know, so the Standard Kart M, what this vehicle is basically, it's sort of Limitless's take on just a generic Mario Kart Wii vehicle. It's just the Standard Kart M from vanilla, but amped up a notch. Like, we've made it faster relative to its vanilla counterpart, so that it isn't perpetually stuck on the lower end of the tier list. And it's, like, the attributes that it is supposed to specialize in, like handling and acceleration and stuff, they've been enhanced. This thing's handling isn't terrific in the grand scheme of Limitless, but it's still leagues better than anything in the base game. Like, look at this. Like, not even Booster Seat can take turns that well. Like, it can't swerve with that level of mobility. And I think this level of mobility is nice to have in Limitless because it opens up the handling stat as a stat that you could potentially put some value in without feeling like a dunce, if that makes sense. Like, you don't feel stupid for wanting a high degree of mobility, especially in Limitless, because pack play is much more prevalent in Limitless because vehicles that aren't built around speed can actually keep up using their attributes, right? Like, everything, like the slowest vehicles are much faster relative to the fastest vehicles than they are in the base game. So actually picking a vehicle like the Standard Kart M that is focused less on building a lead and more maximizing its chances in the thick of a pack, you know, that's a legitimate strategy. So obviously, because that's a legitimate strategy, you're not throwing by doing that. You know, obviously that becomes a lot more important, and Standard Kart M's expertise in such a craft comes in handy. The fact that Standard Kart M lacks any defining, like, strengths or gimmicks as well, that might sound like a turnoff, because it may seem like it has nothing going for it. But honestly, right, not having any gimmicks to distract yourself with leads to a very streamlined experience. If you want to just use a kart with no strings attached, no caveats, no nothing, you can just pick up the standard kart. And you're in for a grand old time. Do you know what I mean? If you just want to pick up karts in Limitless, I highly recommend this thing as your starting point. Like, you've got a nice, perfectly well-rounded bundle of stats to work with. You've got good physics, solid stability, you've got good acceleration, good handling. Top speed isn't great, but it's serviceable. Its ratio of mini turbo and top speed is perfectly average, so you don't struggle on any particular track archetype. Maybe on DKS if you do shit like this, but that's beside the point. And obviously not having to worry about hybrid drift like Super Blooper or performance transmission like Wild Wing. You know, if you don't want to deal with any of those downsides, Standard Kart M's got you covered. It's got none of that bullshit. It's just overall a very appealing vehicle, despite the fact that objectively it has nothing going for it. It's just a solid kart. It's just a solid starting point for your Mario Kart Wii Limitless experience. A lot of people actually cite the standard karts as, like, good go-to picks for this mod. And you know what? I agree. And that's the whole point. So, like, there we... Ground Star! So there we go. I guess you could say this mod has done its job by making the standard vehicles appealing to use for beginners, and still able to keep up with the rest of the vehicles for experts. I don't know, there's a nice balance to be struck there, and I think we've done it quite well. I suppose the main flaws to Standard Kart M is that it quite literally has no strengths, so like, The fact that it can't really abuse speed or mini-turbo means it gets left in the dust pretty quickly. And obviously its speccing into like acceleration and mobility means that its speed in mini-turbo is just strictly outclassed by karts like Wild Wing and Flameflyer, right? But obviously the mid-pack stats are of a draw to this vehicle, so you're not really in a worse position just by being outsped by those vehicles, because you can stand up to like repeated assaults in a way that those vehicles succinctly can't. Also, if you've got a mini-turbo, you can drift off-road, which is incredibly niche, but it does come up on tracks like BKM or Moai Mountain's ramp shortcut at the end of the track, for example, which is pretty cool. Like, niche stuff like this is where my interests lie, so you can see why stuff like that would be very appealing for some players. Not having a wheelie button can also hurt in instances like that because it makes taking shortcuts a little bit harder. And for this reason, actually, combined with the fact that Standard Kart M is on the slower side among karts, means that picking tracks that favor karts is like a pretty big strategy for this vehicle, since picking kart favored tracks means that it can do its strategies much easier, and also it has like it statistically has a higher chance of being able to keep up with bikes that it otherwise would have no chance of keeping up with. Like, on a track like BC3, for example, this thing would stand no chance against Flame Runner in a foot race. But on a track like, I don't know, GCN Yoshi Circuit, its odds would be much higher. And stuff like that becomes very good. Tracks like that become very good because it means that Standard Kart M can become a legitimate frontrunning threat, while also keeping its intended advantage of being good in a thick pack. You can stack the chips heavily in your favor by picking tracks to maximize your advantage. I don't know, it definitely adds an interesting dynamic in Mario Kart Wii Limitless competitive play for sure. Alright, and that's another 60. And thus that wraps up another Mario Kart Wii Limitless developer commentary / vehicle showcase. I'd like to thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to check the next parts when they come out, and the previous parts if you haven't already done so. And until next time, that is Ross, signing out. Goodbye.